So I want to give you guys 3 things to do and 3 things to avoid when you're detailing an engine, because this is potentially one of the most profitable add-ons you can add on in your detailing business. Now, the first reason why detailers say I'm not going to detail the engine bay, Luke, is because they're afraid that introducing water to the engine is going to screw something up and it's going to make your life miserable because you got to pay some big insurance claim or whatever. Well, you guys can see in this video that I've actually got some trash bags covering some of the areas of the engine that I don't want water to get into or to get on. By the way, this is not something I do every time. It's just something I do on vehicles that are around 8 years old or older. And it's not even necessary. It's just a precaution. It's not that these areas would get ruined if they did get touched with water. It's just that I want to be cautious. You can literally waterproof these areas just by covering them up with a plastic trash bag. No matter how much water you put in the engine, it's not going to touch those areas. So that's number one. The second thing that I suggest you guys do is focus on the areas that are black trim or black colored in general, or let's just say dark colored in general, because when you finish an engine bay detail, you're going to want to dress those areas. And the areas that really can't be dressed, or that at least don't look really shiny and dark and dressed when you do dress them, are the lighter colored areas. And so this would be kind of like the top of the actual engine block. In this case, it's just kind of like a silver color. It's got the Toyota emblem on it, but even if I dress that with wax, it's not going to kind of pop and look like the engine was detailed. The areas that look done are the areas that are dressed with black trim, dressing after they get cleaned. Those are the areas that pop. They look really dark, and that's what makes people feel like the engine was actually detailed, or those areas. So make sure to focus on those areas, particularly the area at the top, kind of closer to the windshield. It's often easy to overlook that area because you're so focused on the engine right in front of you and those components. Make sure to go up there with a detailing brush, brush that entire area, even up into the black trim where the windshield wipers sit, because that's where you're going to want to dress up to when you're finished. Now, the third thing I suggest you guys do is invest in an easy detail brush, both the large version and the small version. With an engine bay detail, you're obviously going to want to use a detail brush, and you're obviously going to want to use some type of strong degreaser, and that does most of the work for you. But it's really easy to take that long bristled brush and just kind of do a swipe around the edges of the engine, and in certain areas, it's far easier to get those bristles that are really soft. They're not going to kind of, hit any wires and unwire anything or mess something up. Rather than taking a detail brush and trying to intricately get those bristles down there, it's way easier just to use a brush like that. Now, let me get into the 3 things not to do when you're detailing an engine, okay? The first thing that I would say, obviously, is do not use a pressure washer. And this sounds obvious, but I think a lot of people actually do use a pressure washer. And there are certain scenarios where you could probably be fine doing that, holding it at a certain distance, but in my world, I'm like, why risk it, right? So I just hook up a classic little garden hose spray trigger handle to the end of my hose, and that's what I use to rinse and to clean the engine. I don't want any high PSI water being blasted into that kind of more gentle area. The second thing I would say not to do is when you're finished cleaning it, don't just let the water sit in puddles in the engine bay. It's not that that would do anything bad, but once again, we're talking about risk management for the number one reason that people don't detail engines, which is I'm afraid of water damage. I like to take a leaf blower or even an air compressor, blow out those areas, and a leaf blower is actually more what I suggest because an air compressor has such targeted high PSI. I don't even like using that, kind of for the same reason I don't like using a pressure washer. So just take my Milwaukee cordless blower with that little stubby nozzle on top of it, and I blow out all of the areas as best I can. Then I turn the engine on and I let it run for about 5 to 8 minutes, okay? Then we're all good, even if the engine isn't totally dry. And the third thing that I would say not to do when you're dressing an engine, and this might be kind of counterintuitive to some people, but don't spend an hour detailing the engine and trying to make it perfect. What a lot of detailers don't know is that the dirt that's on a lot of the engine can be pushed off by just rinsing it after you've put some degreaser on it. It doesn't even necessarily take a lot of agitation. The other thing to recognize is that you could spend 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours detailing an engine if you just keep going deeper. And there's a certain point at which the detailer has to say, I'm cutting this off and I'm not going any further with this. The other thing I would say is when you're finished and the thing is dry, you can dress over some minor dirt and minor debris and minor dust, and it covers over those things fantastically without any structural damage or functional damage to the engine. It puts a layer of protection down and it allows you to save a lot of time. So this isn't some sort of cutting corners thing. This is just the reality that the dirt on the engine is really not that adhered or stuck to those areas. It doesn't necessarily require a crazy amount of energy to get it off. A lot of times just the rinsing will do. So if there's a little residue or a few water spots or something, don't worry about those things. Dress over those things with something like the Stoner More Shine Tire Shine or a diluted form of hyper dressing or Chemical Guys VRP, and you're gonna be just fine. Now, as just a simple bonus tip for cleaning and dressing engines, the thing you always wanna make sure you you do is clean the under part of the hood before you actually clean the engine. A lot of times it's easy to forget that that's actually part of an engine detail, and often it's only the door jamb around the hood that you actually do have to clean, but because you get so hyper-focused on actually detailing the engine, you often miss looking up and getting that area. Now guys, as always, I will put all the links to the products and tools that I used in this video for my own engine detail in the YouTube description box if you wanna check those out. And if you got some value here, make sure to clean up that like button by pressing it, turning it blue. It's the only metric I know that tells me you guys enjoyed this content. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being involved. And from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, keep working hard, and I'll see you in the next video.